Alright, so what's up, guys? I just posted, not too long ago, a little showcase of this build that I'm playing. Uh, just a warning before you even get started into watching this video. I'm not going to do any mapping. I'm not going to be running around. This is what I'm doing right here. I am sitting in my hideout and I'm going to talk. I'm going to give you an in-depth look at what I'm running, why I'm running it, the nodes that I chose, why I chose those nodes, the gear, why I have the gear that I have, all that good stuff, just in depth. So, if you don't like videos where a person is just talking, this is not the video for you. Move on, but I'm gonna give whoever wants to watch this video an in-depth guide. I don't know how long the video is gonna be. I don't know how long it's gonna take for me to explain everything, but let's just get to it. So where do I start? Let's start with the Bleed Impale. How about that? So I chose Bleed Impale at League Start only because I knew Omniscience, the whole attribute stacking, all that stuff was going to be super expensive because that's what everyone played last league. And when people found out, hey, we're making 0 changes in this next patch, I knew it was going to be expensive. Right now, the Omniscience amulet is about 35 exalts. I'm not paying 35 exalts for a fucking amulet. It better be mirror tier or some shit like that for me to even consider paying 35 exalts for an amulet. It's not what I'm doing. So, I chose to go physical damage since all elemental skills, all that good stuff was going to be based around Omniscience. And I chose Bleed Impale. When I had first started this character, I started it off as a champion through the leveling process as I was going through the maps for fortify the attack speed. Um, I had Master of Metal, and by the time I got to maps, um, I didn't even have my Eternal Lab finished. So after I got to maps, I ran a few more maps. I ended up getting the Goddess, and I switched into Gladiator because Gladiator's just better for what I'm doing. Now, the Gladiator Ascendancy comes with Arena Challenger, which has Challenger Charges. And Challenger Charges give you 2 more attack and movement speed per Challenger Charge. Excuse me. It gives 2 more attack and movement speed per Challenger Charge. It's a more multiplier. So, I think it's the only multiplier in the game to attack speed and movement speed, which means you attack really fast, you move really fast. You have 10 Challenger Charges, a maximum of 10, so that's 20% more attack speed and movement speed. And then you have to run Flesh and Stone to get the Challenger Charges, whether you're attacking a unique or you're attacking or just killing stuff in a map. It also comes with Outmatch and Outlast, which gives you Frenzy Charges while you're running through the maps. You get Blood and Eyes, which gives you a chance to maim against bleeding enemies. You have a chance to cause bleeding, and you have a chance to blind. And blind takes down the enemy accuracy, which means that you become a little bit more tankier. And then it comes with Gratuitous Violence. Bleeding enemies you kill explode, deal 10% of their physical life as maximum life is physical damage. And then you get 20% more physical damage over time. So it's this node that gives the bleed pops. And while I was playing Impale, or while I was planning Impale, I was just like, why not add bleed to have a little damage over time? While I'm dodging or doing whatever, let's give it a little damage over time. So this tree that I have looked nothing like this when I league started. Um, you want a 100% chance to bleed, and you want a 100% chance to impale. And I knew that at league start. So while I was, league starting, I started picking up little nodes like merciless skewering. I came down here, I had forceful skewering. I came over here to this other impel node, I had harpooner, and I just wanted 100% bleed chance just to have that little extra damage over time while I'm moving around bosses, or if they're throwing an attack, it's consistent damage all the time. So even when I'm not attacking, I'm still doing damage, which is a cool part about bleed. Um so let's get into impel. Right now I'm using the divergent impel support, and it gives me a 60% chance to impel enemies on hit. Now, I wanted it to be a fast mapper. I wanted it to attack really fast. I wanted it to move fast. And specking all the way down here to, forceful skewering, or all the way up here to harpooner and stuff was a lot of travel nodes. I had to travel a long way. So I just decided to use the divergent impel support to put my nodes somewhere else. Are there better options? I mean, you could run a damage on full life with awakened brutality, and uh or damage on full life with brutality and vicious projectiles, sure. But that wasn't my plans. That's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to be able to be fast, move fast, attack fast. So I just used the Impale support, and what's cool about Impale is the way that you can scale it. You can scale Impale damage two separate ways. Now, Impale has nothing to do with bleed. Impale does not scale bleed, but I'll get more into that later if I remember. So there's two separate ways you can scale Impale, and that's by adding more projectiles to Impale. Let's say, like I have it down here, a Watcher's Eye. It says impels you inflict lasts 2 additional hits while you're using Pride. So that means at base value, Impale will be able to hit 5 times. But if it lasts 2 additional hits, you are getting 7 impels, which is sort of like a 20% more multiplier to impels. You can take it even further, like I did, and I picked up the Forbidden Flesh and the Forbidden Flame jewels to get Master of Metal, which will add another impel, making it like a 30% more multiplier. And the reason I'm running the Divergent is for the 5% chance to inflict an additional impale. So around 8 at base value, with 9 with a 5% chance to inflict 9 impels on an enemy, which is pretty cool. Also on this gem, it has supported attacks have 28% increased impel effect. Now, impel effect scales differently from the general increased pool, which would include, damage with bows, projectile damage, physical damage, damage while leeching. Um, what else is in there? Just general bow attack, still 25 increased damage. All of those increased damage nodes go into one big pool, which means that they all get added together. Even these gloves that I have. These gloves give me 60% increased damage while leeching, which just goes into that pool of all the other increases that you have. This has 29 increased damage with bows. All that increased gets added together. But Impale Effect acts differently because it's not just generic increases to damage. This is a increase to the effect of impales. And when it starts off at 0, anything from 1 to 100% is more multipliers. So this is basically like a 28% more multiplier to the impel effect. You can further increase the impel effect from these nodes. Uh, where's it at? Right here. Merciless Skewering has 5% increased impel effect, which is like 5% more. This has 6% increased impel effect, which is 6% more. Now, from 1 to 100%, once you get 100% of these increases, if you can, it would be like 100% more damage. That is considered double damage. If you get 200%, that would be 150% more damage. And then you start to experience diminishing returns. If you go up to 300%, it's 175% more damage. So with every 100 increased, you're kind of cutting your damage in half every single time. So you start to experience diminishing returns after around 200% increased, which is why a lot of people say you need to find different ways to scale your damage. With Impale, you can add more impales, or you can increase the effect of Impale. Those would be more multipliers. Attack speed is sort of considered a more multiplier, depending on how fast you attack. The faster you attack, the more damage you do. And even that kind of has a fall off point. Bleed can be increased by, deals damage faster. The damaging elements deal damage 10% faster is like a 10% more multiplier. Down here at Dirty Techniques, it gives damaging elements deal damage 10% faster, which is like another 10% more multiplier. But that's just to bleed. Now, Impale effect, stacking the number of impels are kind of more multipliers. Bleed, you could damaging elements deal damage faster. I mean, if I were to scale into bleed and just run a bleed build, then I would consider getting the damaging elements. But what bleed and what impel both scale with is physical damage. So if you wanted to, you could run down to like Bastion Breaker and get 30% increased attack physical damage, and it will scale both your bleed and your impale damage. You could run over here to Master of Blades, which will also increase the physical damage, which is to both your bleed and your impale damage. Bleed damage will scale off of the hit that caused the bleed. So the harder you hit with bleed, the more damage it does. I didn't take that route. Another way to do it is through Overwhelm 20% physical damage reduction, which is on Bastion Breaker. Think of overwhelming physical damage reduction as penetration, but for physical skills. And is it as good as elemental penetration? No. The difference is you can only overwhelm up to 100% of physical damage reduction, and you cannot take the enemy's physical damage reduction into the negatives, while elemental penetration could take their elemental penetration into the negative numbers. It will take their elemental resistances and put them into the negative numbers, which you can't do with physical damage reduction. You can get up to 100. Anything past 100 is a waste because it's no longer going to help you. Let's see here. That's Impale, that's Bleed. Oh, yeah. So I scaled the Impales by adding more Impales. I have a little bit of Impale effect through the gem. Um, I was scaling basic attack damage, but I was like, I want more damage out of my build. How do I go and, how would I get more damage? Well, you can also increase the effect of your auras. Now, it acts again as a more multiplier because there is nothing increasing the effect of your auras. So this chest with the 9% increased effect of non-curse auras from your skills is like a 9% more multiplier to the effect of my auras. You can further increase the damage of your auras if you wanted to spec over here to like Champion of the Cause, which is 4 nodes away from this little bleed circle. And then you can also increase your aura effect even further by getting where's it at? Auras from your skills have 15% increased effect on you, which is the second from last on the bottom. And it will increase the effect of your auras. So with that 9, and let's say that 6 is 15 plus this other 15 is 30% like more damage, but that goes to the auras. The auras that I'm running are Precision, Pride, Flesh and Stone, and Dread Banner, which I don't think Dread Banner is really considered an aura. But Flesh and Stone is, Pride is, and Precision. Pride is the biggest damage boost for our build because it gives 20% more physical damage while they're in the aura, and as long as they stay in the aura, it could increase up to 40. But then also the increases to our physical damage, which doesn't get calculated here, probably, I don't know, maybe like 48% more damage, something like that. But then you want them to be in the radius. So what's cool about Pride is that with every level, it also increases the radius, which this gives plus 10 to radius, so you don't have to be as close to the enemies to get the full output of Pride. I mean, does it start off at just raw 40% more damage? No. But as long as they're in the aura and you continue to attack, your damage will continue to increase up to 40%. Oh, and plus the 9% and whatever of the auras. Even then, I was sitting there and I was like, all right, I still want more damage out of my build. How do I continue to do more damage? Well, since I wanted it to be hit based, I took the bleed node Crimson Dance, which gives me 50% less damage with bleeding, but I'm able to stack bleeding on enemies up to 8 times, and I have about 8 impales. So I was like, these two go hand in hand. By the time that I get all 8 of my impales, I will also have all 8 of my bleed stacks up. But it's not really 50% less because Gratuitous Violence gives me 20% more physical damage over time, which scales with bleed, so it's like 30% less damage with bleeding, but you get 8 stacks of them. And bleed for this build, even though I'm not trying to scale bleed, it does a lot of damage. So I was like, all right, I could get my max stacks of bleeding. I can get my max stacks of impale. I want it to be hit based. Okay, so how would I build this as a hit based? Uh, as like a hit based character. It's like Crimson Dance, and that answered my questions. Um, I still wanted more attack speed. I know that crit also has a lot to do with bleeds. Crit has a lot to do with just generic attack damage. So I was like, all right, how do I further get more damage out of my build? I was like, all right, let's go crit. So I ended up getting bloodletting, and I grabbed the 80% increased critical strikes against bleeding enemies. You don't get the 80% critical strike chance on your first hit. Your first hit is what applies the bleed, but everything past the first hit, you have 80% more critical strike chance. So I started speccing into crit. I was like, all right, how else can I get crit? Bless me. Spell suppression. Why not turn defenses into more damage? So I was like, all right, as long as I was able to get more spell suppression, I'm able to get more crit. More crit is more damage. So I turned my oh wait, that's not spell suppression. Where's it at? Right here. This is spell suppression. I turned my spell suppression into critical strike chance. You can have up to 100% spell suppression, and that will give you 100% critical strike chance. Cool, turning defenses into damage. But even then, I was like, I want more damage. So I started getting, King of the Hill. I started running up here. I got the backstabbing. I started after I had a bunch of crit chance. I was like, let's start getting crit multiplier. Started grabbing Heartseeker. I got the critical mastery, 25% to critical strike multiplier against unique enemies. Cool. I have crit chance. I'm stacking crit multiplier. All these nodes right here, up to King of the Hill, these three come with crit multiplier on them. That's 12 crit multiplier. That's 12 crit multiplier. That's 12 crit multiplier. Over here to backstabbing, backstabbing gives 30 to crit multiplier. Um, that's 14 to crit multiplier, 14 to crit multiplier, 14 to crit multiplier. It gives crit chance and all this crit multiplier with it. I was like, all right, cool. I have a lot of crit chance, but I still want more damage. How do I get more damage? Precision. I ended up grabbing the Hyri's Truth. It's a Jade amulet, and not only does it give flat physical damage, but it gives 25% to global crit strike multiplier. I was like, all right, so I get a level 22 precision, and I get crit strike multiplier, and I get flat physical damage. I have a little bit of life leech from it, and I have 100% increased mana reservation efficiency, which if you don't know what mana reservation efficiency does, it makes the cost of your auras less. You don't have to reserve as much mana to run your auras when you have the mana reservation efficiency. So I was like, all right, precision, what does that give me? More crit chance. It gives me more accuracy. As of right now, I have a 100% chance to hit. When it comes to evasive monsters, I have 98% chance to hit. If I wanted to go further and probably get 100, I can get more crit chance and spec into depth perception. But that's not what I did. I wanted attack speed. I wanted it to be fast. So I got all the attack speed nodes, Claws of the Magpie. Um, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go back to crit. So yeah, I have the precision. I have all this crit chance off the tree. I was like, all right, what do I do now? I got crit multiplier on the amulet. What else do I need? Attack speed, flat physical damage, crit multiplier. And those were the three things that I looked for on all my gear. Was attack speed, crit multiplier, and flat physical damage. So I went around and I was like, what can I get crit multiplier on? My quiver has 34% crit multiplier. This ring has 21% crit multiplier. It has flat physical damage. This ring has 14 to global crit multiplier, flat physical damage. The bow has 34 crit multiplier with 33% critical strike chance and a high DPS for the bow. When it comes to bow builds, if you're playing a physical skill like this, you want the highest physical damage bow. Now, if you don't know how to get a high physical damage bow, you can go to Path of Exile trade. At the very bottom, it will say PDPS or Elemental DPS or just DPS in general. You can click on those. Um, if you clicked on just regular DPS, it's probably going to give you a bow that has fire, lightning, and cold damage on it. If you click on elemental DPS, it'll be the same thing: fire, lightning, and cold damage on it. What you want to click is the PDPS, and that is the physical damage. Because in this build, I'm running Awakened Brutality, and you can see this roll at the very, very bottom of the item. So when you go to look for a bow, you can see the item and you're able to click on PDPS or whatever. So what I did was I chose what rolls I wanted. I wanted crit chance and crit multiplier. So I typed in crit chance, I typed in crit multiplier, I hit search for a bow, I scrolled down to PDPS, I clicked on PDPS, and it showed me a bow like this. I was like, all right, cool, this works. It had an open prefix that had attack speed on it, and this craft for 30% chance to deal double damage while focused is a 1 divine craft. You can get the craft from running, uh, what is it? Syndicates, yeah. You can get the craft by unveiling syndicate items. And the way syndicate works now is once you unveil one type of item, you have tier 3 of it. You get the max level of it. So this craft was only 1 divine. And I get a 30% chance to deal double damage only while I'm focused. Um, So if you wanted to, a cheaper alternative, instead of going and looking for this particular craft on an item, which would probably be super expensive and you might overpay for it, just look for a high DPS weapon. And if it has an open prefix or if it has a crafted attack speed or something like that, you can just craft on double damage. And it'd probably save you a lot of currency. Um, so yeah, I wanted the crit chance. The bow critical strike chance itself has a 8.64% chance to crit. So it's a huge crit weapon. It is. The physical damage could be higher on it. Yeah, this is only around like 600-ish. 590s to like 600 PDPS. Um the PDPS of a weapon can go up to like 900, and for the super mirror tier items they can get into the 1000s. So I don't have mirrors to spend. I wanted the cheapest alternative, so I searched for my critical chance, my crit multiplier, and I got the highest DPS weapon I could afford, and it was this one. And then it had crafted attack speed. I took the craft off, I paid 1 divine, and I got the 30% chance to deal double damage while focused. And started stacking crit multiplier on all the other gear. Um, but even after all the crit, even after all of the crit multiplier, still wanted more damage. How do I get more damage? Well, if there's one thing that this build needs a lot of, it's mana. And a lot of mana leech at that. Because I have so much attack speed from Claws of the Magpie, from coming down here to whatever that word is, acuity, it gives me a lot of attack speed. This gives me a lot of attack speed, Claws of the Magpie. I'm also running a large cluster jewel with Feed the Fury and Martial Prowess. Martial Prowess gives me 6% increased attack speed. You know, Feed the Fury gives me 15% increased attack speed. I'm running another cluster jewel down here that is Feed the Fury, Smite the Weak, and Vicious Skewering. Feed the Fury is another 15% increased attack speed. And I just have a lot of attack speed. So I was running into mana issues. And I was like, okay, I need mana leech. That's just what it is. So at this Claws of the Magpie, I grabbed 1% of attack damage is leeched as life, and 1% of attack damage is leeched as mana. Because with all that attack speed, you're gonna run into mana issues. So mana leech, you hit for whatever DPS you just did, it will give you 1% of that back as mana. So you're always leeching mana while you are going through maps or you're fighting a boss. Mana leech is sort of mandatory. And I was like, I'm always leeching. Well, if you spec over here to like Clever Thief, you can get 1% attack damage leeched as life, and you can get 1% of attack damage leeched as mana. But then there's also a Leech Mastery that gives you 30% increased damage while leeching. And if there's one thing that I'm always leeching, it's mana. I am always leeching mana. So that's just a 30% increased damage. I need mana leech anyway. So I was like, alright, how about we turn our mana leech into even more damage? So I ended up getting these gloves that have 60% increased damage while leeching. That's just 60% increased damage. While I'm always leeching and I'm leeching mana. Martial Prowess does nothing for leeching, but Feed the Fury, it's attack speed while I'm leeching. It gives 30% increased damage while I'm leeching. And I'm always leeching mana. So there's about 100% uptime on just leeching all the time. Down here again, I have another Feed the Fury, another 30% increased damage while leeching, 15% increased attack speed while leeching. I'm turning a necessity that I need to run the build, which is mana, into damage, just like spell suppression. Something that's basically a necessity for survival in the maps, into critical strike chance, which is damage. Even with all that, because I still have so much damn attack speed, we can't forget about the challenger charges, which is 20% more attack speed. We have frenzy charges while we're going through the maps. Guess what frenzy charges do? Gives you more attack speed. Or it increased attack speed, whatever. But it's just a fuck ton of attack speed, and even with all that, I was still having mana issues. So I ended up getting a replica Conqueror's Efficiency, and it takes my non-channeling skill, which is Tornado Shot, and it gives it a -9 to mana cost. And it started to feel better, it did, but I didn't want to run through the map and shoot one shot and then just be out of mana. I wanted to be able to at least shoot 3 to 4 times before I was completely out of mana. And this Conqueror's Efficiency helped me get to that point. I also have a ring right here, which non-channeling skills have -7 to total mana cost. It helps me continue to attack, and with one hit, the mana you spent is going to come back as like leeching until it becomes full, but we attack so fast anyways, our mana is never full for it as little as this seems. We have 99 mana, everything else is reserved. Our Tornado Shot costs 21 mana. So we're getting like 3 shots before we're just completely out of mana. We have about a 100% uptime on leeching, which is all that damage. I now have enough mana to just run through the maps. I'm not a perfect shot, so I could miss a couple shots and get my mana back. The Mirage Archer, I don't know if this is true or not, but it seems to work for me because I'm not really running any mana regen. If you have your Mirage Archer up and it hits something, I'm pretty sure it gives you that leech, which will allow you to continue to attack. So I turned just general mana leeching into damage. Attack speed on the gloves, 16% attack speed. Chance to impale. I'll get into chance to impale and why I'm running all the rest of this later. So I ended up getting these cluster jewels for more attack speed and more damage while I'm leeching. I may be experiencing diminishing returns. This whole build has it's subject to change. What I've been thinking about doing, I have a life roll on this ring, but it's a prefix, and I can just craft non-channeling skills, have -7. Is it a prefix or a suffix craft? It's a prefix craft. If I wanted to, I could take off this life roll and get non-channeling skills have -7 to mana cost. Which, if you're looking for rings, from what I've noticed, don't pay for a ring that has this craft on it. This craft cost about 4 chaos. Double damage while focused is a divine orb. But if you try to find a ring that has this craft on it, you might be paying twice to triple the amount as you would if you just found a ring with the open prefix and crafted the non-channeling skills have -7 to total mana cost. It will save you a lot of currency. When I went looking for a ring that had the craft on it, there were some of them that were posted for exalts. And I was like, that doesn't even seem worth it. I came across this ring. Guess how much of this ring cost me? A couple chaos. But the critical strike multiplier was the most expensive roll on it. So I was like, alright, it's got an open prefix. It's cheaper. It has more of what I need on it. It has fire resistance. It has elemental resistance. It has cold resistance. It has the flat physical damage. It has the global crit strike multiplier on it. The only reason I wanted the ring in the first place was for the non-channeling skills have -7 to total mana cost. So I ended up getting a better ring for cheaper and just paying 4 chaos. I think it took like 3 tries. So like 16k or 12 chaos to get the -7 to total mana cost. Don't jip yourself. If you go and look for this craft on a ring, I could almost guarantee you will be overpaying for it. Don't overpay for shit. Generally, with all the gear, resistances. Prioritize your resistances over damage. It's very important to prioritize your resistances over damage. Right now, I'm fully res capped, except for chaos, which I have 17% chaos. But hey, 17 is better than a negative number. Excuse me. Anyway, you want to be chaos, not chaos. You want to be elemental resistance capped at all times. If you can find a way to cap all your resistances to 75, or in my case, 76, you don't need any more elemental resistances past that. It will do nothing for you. There are maps, if you've been running maps, that will give you -10 to player elemental resistances, or -5 to player elemental resistances. That does not mean if you have, 10 more resistances onto your elemental resistances that you will still be at 75. That is not how that works. When you get a map that says you have -10 to your elemental resistances, it will take your 75% and it will make it 65. There is no reason to ever go over 75% of your fire, cold, and lightning resistance. If you're able to find a way to cap your fire, cold, and lightning resistances, then you can start getting damage mods, even beyond damage mods. What's a good example? These gloves. I had my fire, cold, and lightning resistance is capped. They're capped right now. This 83, 85, 81, I'm over capped. I don't need that much resistances. If I wanted to, I can probably roll off lightning resistance on an annul and probably get a +1 to projectiles or something like that. But 36, I only have, 85 lightning res? That would be a little much. But yeah, you only need 75. So with these gloves, I was like, all right, I don't need any elemental resistances, but I want chaos resistance. So guess what I did? I got my flat physical damage, my attack speed, chaos resistance, my life roll, and increased damage while leeching. Once you get all of your fire, cold, and lightning resistances capped, then you can pick and choose what you want to change, and then find gear that has chaos resistance on it. This belt has no chaos resistance on it. These boots have no chaos resistance on it. This quiver does, because I probably wanted the lightning res and the chaos res. Where else am I getting chaos resistance at? The helmet? No, I'm getting chaos resistance from somewhere. I know I didn't go from -60 to 17 because I have 23 chaos resistance on this. Yeah, I don't know how that's working. But yeah, you can go and start getting gear that has chaos resistance on it. Oh, right here, the armor. The armor has cold resistance and chaos resistance, because that was all I needed, was a little bit of cold resistance, and I wanted the chaos. Spell suppression is also our critical strike chance, because of this node right here. the Inveterate, I guess. Inveterate. And then critical strike chances increased by spell suppression. So spell suppression to us in all reality is more crit strike chance. You can consider this chest piece a crit chest. Why? Because 30% chance to suppress spell damage. That is 30% critical strike chance right there. So you want spell suppression from the from your armor. You want spell suppression on your boots. You can get a spell suppression on your boots. You can roll spell suppression on your helmet, and you can also roll spell suppression on your gloves. Spell suppression on gear is expensive, it is. But as long as you have your spell suppression, your life, and your resistances, you will do fine. Your spell suppression turns into crit chance. Crit chance is just better damage. So that's how I've been doing that. What else am I missing? Accuracy. I probably don't even need that roll any longer because I'm running the precision. Oh, precision, yeah. So this particular amulet comes with 100% increased mana reservation. You can increase that further by grabbing a accuracy node if you either want acuity or if you want more crit chance up here like depth perception. You can get the accuracy mastery and it will give precision 100% increased mana reservation efficiency, which makes it easier to run precision. In this build I have an Enlightened Support. The Enlightened Support was just a drop that I got in the map. I don't expect everyone to have Enlightened. So if you don't have Enlightened, I guess the cheaper route would be to run over here to Champion of the Cause. And you could run 15% increased mana reservation efficiency, which would still allow you to run all your auras. If you want to take it even further, you could run over here to Gladiator's Perseverance, which will give you 1% of physical damage leached as life. It gives you 10% increased attack speed while you're at full life, and it will give you 40% increased attack damage while you're leeching. And more than likely, you're always going to be leeching damage. If you can't get these cluster jewels, there's still different ways to scale your damage. You can run over here to Clever Thief, and you can get the Leech Mastery, which will give you another 30% increased damage while leeching, and it will still give you a lot of leech effects. If you don't have a means to get a replica Conqueror's efficiency, or you can't get a ring that has -7 to total mana cost, there is a node right here that is called Revelry, I guess. Anyway, it's a mana node. There's 2 of them. So if you want to grab the Revelry, it will also give you 10% increased effect of non-curse auras from skills on enemies, which is Pride. Pride will get another increased effect on the enemy, I guess. I might be wrong. That's the way that I looked at it. And you can get the Mana Leech Mastery, which is 10% reduced mana cost of skills, which will reduce your mana cost of your skill, and it will allow you to attack if you don't have a way to this replica's Conqueror's effect or whatever. Also, while you're running through maps on the helmet, you can get a Exarch, the red one. a lesser red one is what I used on these. 20% reduced mana cost of skills of attacks, which Tornado Shot is an attack. Um, it will still allow you to have a decent amount of attack speed without losing all your mana, because it just feels really bad when you try to do what somebody else is doing and you run into problems and you don't know what they did or how to fix it. So yeah, this is like another way to reduce your mana cost is by getting that on the helmet. The Is it the red one? It is Searing Exarch. Yes, it's the red one. This is a lesser roll. It will help you keep your mana sustain. What else can you do? Um, if you can't get the the Watcher's Eye for the Impels, I mean, you don't really need it. You could still run through maps. I mean, it will take you longer to run through maps. You're not gonna do millions of DPS more than likely, but you can go without it. If you can't get this Watcher's Eye, if you can't get the Forbidden Flesh Jewels, um, there's no need for you to have these jewel sockets. Um, if you can't get like Feed the Fury, Fuel the Flight, Martial Prowess, then you're gonna wanna spec into Merciless Skewering, and you're going to want Impale damage dealt to enemies, as the Impale Mastery overwhelms 20% physical damage reduction, which the Impales only will get that damage reduction. You're probably going to want to come down to Bastion Breaker and get 30% increased attack physical damage with overwhelm 20% physical damage. And there's a physical mastery that you could get 20% chance to impale enemies on hit if you are having trouble getting your 100% chance to impale. There's a physical mastery that can give you 20% more chance to impale. You can spec over here to Master of Blades, which is overwhelms 10% physical damage reduction. It will give you 30 to strength, which we're over here at a lot of these dexterity nodes. So to run Pride, you're probably going to need something like strength anyways. So you could run Master of Blades. You can also get this physical mastery with overwhelm 15% physical damage reduction. And out of those three nodes, what is that? That's 10 plus the mastery is 25 plus this is 45, so that's like 45% penetration, which is 45% more damage. And then with the impels, but just the impels, would be like 70. Is it 15? 20. So 40, 65 penetration for physical damage. You can still grab your life nodes, bravery. You want all of your thick skin and all of these nodes, your element immunities. You're still going to want those. Corrupted blood cannot be inflicted on you. You're still going to want those. Depending on what level you are and if you have these gems or not, what I would do personally, I think Lion Ice Fall was only a couple C when I got it. So grabbing one of these, you're gonna come up to these nodes anyway to grab Backstabbing and Claws of Magpie. but you can also grab one with evil, and all of these nodes will give you chaos resistances, and then you can get the element mastery, which will give you 20% chance to avoid being stunned, which goes really well with Heart of the Oak, because Heart of the Oak also gives you a 20% chance to avoid being stunned. So that's a 40% chance to avoid being stunned. Plus the little node gives 8. And this other life node up here gives 8. Which is just better survivability throughout maps. Um, if you're unable to, I guess, get the Lion Eyes, if the cost got up to like some exalts or whatever, you can still get your attack speed through coming down here to Master Fletcher. I would still recommend grabbing one with evil, but you can spec all the way up here to ballistics, and then you can spec over here to the side to aspect of eagle, which will give you more attack speed, increased damage with bows, um, all that other good stuff is the route that I would take. For the crit chance, I guess you would have to go with like depth perception. Um, where else would you get crit? You'd have to deal with that for now and just run with whatever crit chance you have at that point, and then continue to fill out your life nodes. If you wanted to take it a step further and do something I didn't do, you could also become more tanky by grabbing Revenge of the Hunted. Yeah. You can spec down here to Forceful Skewering, which will give you more Impale effect and more damage, I guess, if you can't get these cluster jewels. Yeah, there's still a lot of different ways to go about building this without having these cluster jewels and the Watcher's Eye and the Forbidden Flame jewels. You can still do really good DPS. Um, the bow. It all depends on the bow. It really does. A high DPS bow will help you better than any jewel in the game will. It will help you better than any item in the game will. So just a quick rundown. I also got a curse. It's a vulnerability curse, which is 32% increased effect. You can get one that has like 20% increased effect. If you can't run vulnerability, then try to get a ring that has flat physical damage on it. If there's one thing that you want on every piece of your gear, from your gloves to your rings to the amulet to the quiver, it is flat damage, because Tornado Shot has a 120% effect of added damage. That's added damage, which comes from the flat numbers like 12 to 23 physical damage. That's added damage. 120% increased effect. So getting flat damage on gear would be better than getting any increased, like 29 increased damage with bows. If you don't have that mod, that's cool. You don't need it. What you want is flat numbers. You want spell suppression on your gear, because spell suppression is crit chance. Your flasks, if you don't have a means to a dying sun, you could still run a Quicksilver, a Sulfur Flask, a Quartz Flask for the phasing, and again, spell suppression, which is still crit chance. I was running Onslaught before I got this, because I ended up getting Onslaught on the boots. So you can run an Onslaught Flask. If you're really, really good in damage and you don't need, or you don't feel like you need any more damage, you could run Evasion Flasks. If you want more crit chance, you can run a Crit Chance Flask. It's pretty much up to you. But for the movement speed, I would definitely run a Quicksilver Flask. This Life Flask is for bleed immunity, since corrupting blood can't be inflicted on us, which helps us out a lot. We still are vulnerable to bleeds and poisons and stuff. But because we leech back so much life and we leech back mana so quickly anyways, the only thing that you might feel or that might kill you in the maps is probably going to be bleed, especially if you get hit and bleed is inflicted on you, then while you're running it'll probably drain all your life out. So those are some changes that you can make since all of this stuff is pretty expensive. The boots, you want life, you want move speed. These boots have spell suppression, they have life, they have move speed. 25% move speed at the very least. At the very least, 25% move speed. You can get up to 30%. But you want the spell suppression, the life, and resistances. I can't make it a point, or I'm trying to make it a point to put your resistances over your damage. If you want a alternative bow, you could use a Crimson Storm, which is one of these. Where's it at? It is right here. You can use a Crimson Storm depending on the price of these bows, because it's all supply and demand. If you can't get a Crimson Storm, I guess I would run around with like still the highest DPS weapon you can get. Silver Tongue does pretty decent damage, I think, for pretty cheap. Arrows that pierce have 50% to crit multiplier, and I think that's like after they pierce, so it's a way for like a little bit more crit multiplier, and we're running pierce on the tree. So projectiles pierce 2 additional enemies, projectiles pierce 1 enemy. So I mean, is it as good as the Crimson Storm? Not in my opinion, but depending on the prices, it's an alternative. If you can't get one of those, don't get a Death Opus. The damage on the Death Opus is just too low. I guess you could try to use an Infractum, but then you can't leech life. You'll still be able to leech mana. Will give you accuracy also. But look for the highest physical damage DPS that you can get. The gloves, the rings, the belt, all that. Cap your resistances. Get life on all your gear, except for the bow. The bow's the one place you don't want life at. The bow is also the one place you don't want resistances at. Get resistances on rings, get resistances on your armor, on your belt, your gloves, your boots, your amulet if you need to. Cap your resistances. Find a high physical damage bow, one that you can afford. What else is there? Yeah, I think that's it. Oh, flat damage. You want flat damage. On all your gear. You don't need the crit multiplier. If you can get the crit multiplier, great. Grab it. You have enough crit chance to use all your crit multiplier. Is that it? Is that everything? Lynx is just Divergent Tornado Shot with increased attack speed. You can use all regular gems if you want to. Vicious Projectiles. Do you need the Awakened version? No. Mirage Archer. This one fires 2 additional projectiles, which is just better clear. Do you need this one? No. Impale. Do you need Divergent? Nope. Greater multiple projectiles. Whoops. And Brutality. And then I'm also running a 4-link Ballista Totem, greater multiple projectiles, focus ballista, and tornado shot. If I get a 6-link bow, I'm also going to add in vicious projectiles and impale. That way my totems also have a chance for impale. The only reason I impale so much is because I'm using the impale support, but the totems are not, which should really help with DPS. Yeah, other than that, that's it. That is it. Some alternatives, some things for gear. Chance to impale for a roll on the gloves, because I didn't have 100% chance to impale. And flat physical damage, you can get crit chance, you can get attack speed. It all depends. The enchantments for the boots was just move speed. Tornado shot fires an additional secondary projectile, which is just like one more arrow, which helps a lot actually. Here's the Pantheon. Solo the Brine King cannot be frozen, and because I run Searing Exarch, I'm using Solo Aberath, unaffected by Burning Ground, which just allows me to run through those maps without all the Burning Ground messing with me. You gotta capture Aberath, I think, inside a summit map to get unaffected by Burning Ground, and cannot be frozen is from the Challenger. Yeah. So just quick rundown of this whole build. Who knows how long this video is, but I'm going to post it anyways. Alright, if you learned something, give it a like or subscribe or whatever, and I will see you all in the next video.